Sam Carter has always believed that his home was more than just a structure. It was a sanctuary built on independence, hard work, and family legacy. A decorated military veteran turned city official with a penchant for restoring classic cars and tending to his beloved suburban property. Sam's home is his peaceful retreat after years of service. Every corner of his property, from the meticulously maintained lawn to the vintage porch lights, tells the story of dedication and personal pride. One of the crown jewels of Sam's home is his private pond, a tranquil oasis that has provided quiet reflection, weekend fishing trips, and a haven for local wildlife. For years, the pond has been a source of inspiration and a reminder of the simple joys of life. It's a space where Sam has entertained friends, celebrated family milestones, and connected with nature in a way that urban life simply cannot replicate. But not everyone in Sam's neighborhood appreciates this blend of history, nature, and independence. Overseeing the community with an iron fist is Kerren, the self-appointed queen of the local homeowners association, HOA. With her impeccably tailored suits, perfectly coiffed hair, and ever-present clipboard, Kerren prides herself on enforcing a strict, one-size-fits-all aesthetic standard that leaves no room for individuality. In her eyes, every property must conform to her ideal of suburban perfection, regardless of its unique history or the wishes of its owner. The conflict ignited one fateful morning when Sam discovered, much to his dismay, that his private pond had been sullied. Trash, ranging from discarded fast food wrappers to broken plastic bottles, had been dumped into his beloved pond. The once pristine water was now murky and cluttered, a shocking violation of everything Sam held dear about his property. Worse, word soon spread that Kerren had personally overseen the operation, deeming the trash a necessary corrective measure to enforce community cleanliness standards. Furious and feeling deeply violated, Sam confronted Kerren at a community meeting later that day. "Kerren, how dare you dump trash in my private pond?" he demanded, voice rising with a mix of indignation and hurt. "This pond is not a public landfill. It's a part of my heritage and my sanctuary. You have no right to mess with my property." Kerren's reply was cold and dismissive. "Sam, the rules apply to everyone. If your property does not meet our community standards, then corrective measures must be taken," she stated with smug certainty, as if she were the sole arbiter of aesthetics. That first confrontation set the stage for a showdown between Sam's fiercely independent spirit and Kerren's draconian enforcement of HOA rules. As the sun set over his tainted pond that evening, Sam knew he couldn't allow Kerren's arbitrary power to continue eroding his legacy. He resolved to fight back, determined to reclaim his property and his freedom, no matter the cost. The following morning, Sam awoke to an official notice taped to his front door. The document, embossed with the HOA crest and signed by Kerren herself, accused him of violating community aesthetic standards due to the unsightly state of his pond now cluttered with trash. The notice demanded that he clean up the mess immediately or face a fine of $750. Its legalistic tone left no room for debate, a clear message that Kerren intended to use the HOA's power to force compliance. Sam's heart raced as he read the notice. His pond had always been his personal haven, a place of natural beauty and tranquility. He knew, however, that Kerren's interpretation of aesthetic standards was not based on any reasonable measure, but on her personal whims. Determined not to be bullied, Sam gathered copies of local zoning laws and property rights documents, which clearly affirmed his right to manage his property as he saw fit. With unwavering resolve, he drafted a formal complaint disputing the fine and outlining his legal defenses. Later that morning, a sedan pulled up along his driveway. Two uniformed inspectors, clipboards in hand, arrived to assess his property. "Mr. Carter," one said in a monotone voice, "we're here on behalf of the HOA to verify that your property meets our community standards." Sam met them at the door. "My pond is a part of my home's legacy," he replied firmly. "I maintain it according to local laws, and I have every right to keep it the way it is." Despite his detailed explanation and the supporting documents he provided, the inspectors dutifully recorded measurements and notes, bound by Kerren's strict directives. Before long, Kerren herself arrived, radiating self-importance in her signature tailored suit and holding her clipboard as if it were a badge of honor. "Sam, if you do not rectify your property's condition immediately, you will face additional penalties," she declared curtly. "The rules apply to everyone, and exceptions cannot be made." Her words stung, and as she turned and walked away, Sam realized that this was not a simple dispute over trash. It was a blatant attempt to assert control over his personal domain. That evening, as Sam sat on his porch, he resolved to fight back against Kerren's tyranny, knowing that the battle to protect his legacy had only just begun. In the days following Kerren's first notice, her tactics escalated dramatically. What started as a single fine soon became a relentless series of violation notices plastered around Sam's property. Each new notice cited yet another infraction, from improper maintenance of private water features to unsanitary property conditions, and threatened even steeper fines if Sam failed to comply. The language in these notices was harsher, each word designed to intimidate and coerce him into submission. Rumors began to spread among the neighbors that Kerren was using the HOA funds to target anyone who dared to defy her overly strict standards. Several residents whispered about how fines mysteriously disappeared when certain donations were made, hinting at misappropriated funds funneled into Kerren's personal projects. One particularly concerned board member discreetly confided in Sam that many of the HOA's actions were less about community well-being and more about enforcing Kerren's personal vendetta. Determined to expose the true extent of the HOA's abuse, Sam installed hidden security cameras around his pond and property. Over the next few days, he captured footage of inspectors arriving unannounced and attaching additional violation notices to his fence and door. One damning clip showed an inspector methodically measuring the pond's edge and scribbling notes, as if he were evaluating a public monument rather than a private water feature. Sam compiled every piece of evidence, photographs, video recordings, and even anonymous tips from sympathetic neighbors, into a comprehensive dossier. His files painted a clear picture. Kerren was not merely enforcing community standards. She was abusing her power to intimidate and control homeowners who dared to maintain their property in their own unique way. When the next HOA board meeting was scheduled, the tension in the community was palpable. Homeowners, many of whom had been similarly harassed, gathered in the meeting room with copies of Sam's dossier in hand. As Sam took the stage and began recounting the timeline of violations and intrusive inspections, the room fell silent. Each piece of evidence further undermined Kerren's authority, transforming what began as a dispute over a trash dump into a full-blown fight for the right to personal property management. By the end of the meeting, the collective outrage of the community was unmistakable. Sam's meticulous documentation had sown the seeds of rebellion, and it was clear that if Kerren's abuses continued, the community would have no choice but to take decisive action. One crisp morning, as Sam was inspecting his property, he discovered that the situation had grown even more outrageous. Kerren had not only dumped trash into his private pond, but had also ordered a team of inspectors to inspect every inch of his property, seemingly to compile an endless list of minor violations. Her goal was to overwhelm him with bureaucracy and force him into compliance. Fed up and ready to reclaim control, Sam devised an ingenious countermeasure. In his barn, he had recently upgraded his automated sprinkler system, an advanced setup originally installed to conserve water and maintain his lush gardens. With a spark of defiance, Sam reprogrammed the system to act as a deterrent against further tampering. At the exact moment when Kerren and her entourage of inspectors reached the edge of his property, Sam activated the sprinklers. A sudden, powerful cascade of water burst forth from hidden nozzles, drenching the group and turning the violation notices into soggy, illegible messes. The impact was immediate. Kerren's meticulously planned inspection was thwarted by a well-timed downpour, leaving her and her subordinates soaked and flustered. Onlookers who had gathered to witness the spectacle erupted in cheers and laughter as the image of a waterlogged, sputtering Kerren spread quickly through the neighborhood. The sprinkler strike was more than just a prank. It was a bold declaration that Sam would no longer allow the HOA to bully him with arbitrary fines and invasive inspections. The incident became a viral sensation, a symbol of resistance that galvanized other residents to question the validity of Kerren's heavy-handed tactics. For Sam, the act of turning water into his weapon was a turning point, a clear message that his property is legacy, and his rights were not for sale to bureaucratic overreach. Desperate to regain control over her crumbling regime, Kerren resorted to one final, extreme measure. That evening, seething from the humiliation of the sprinkler incident and determined to salvage her authority, she picked up the phone and called the local police. In her call, Kerren falsely claimed that Sam's reckless property management had escalated into a public disturbance, endangering community safety. Her baseless allegations were meant to intimidate Sam into submission and reassert her tyrannical power. Within minutes, a police patrol arrived at Sam's property. The officers, maintaining a professional detachment, met Sam calmly at his door. Sam presented them with copies of permits, zoning documents, and a record of his previous correspondence with the HOA, proof that his property was entirely compliant with local laws. The officers, after a brief review, complimented the efficiency of his automated systems and dismissed Kerren's complaint as unfounded. Unwilling to accept defeat, Kerren then took a covert step to further discredit Sam. She secretly hired a private investigator to gather incriminating evidence of mismanagement on his property. That night, while the community slept, the PI attempted to sneak onto Sam's property. However, Sam's hidden security cameras captured every moment. The footage showed the PI triggering alarms and trespassing blatantly. At the next HOA meeting, with the entire community present, Sam took the stage once more. With calm resolve, he played the incriminating footage for everyone to see. This, he declared, is undeniable proof that Kerren's actions have crossed the line from mere overreach to criminal trespass. The room fell silent as gasps and murmurs of approval spread among the residents. Kerren tried to offer a weak defense, claiming her actions were for the good of the community. But the evidence was overwhelming. Later that day, under intense scrutiny from local authorities, Kerren was issued a trespassing citation, a final, symbolic blow to her credibility. It was clear to everyone in the room that Kerren's final, desperate move had backfired completely, marking the beginning of the end for her tyrannical rule. In the aftermath of Kerren's arrest and the damning evidence of her misconduct, the community rallied like never before. An emergency town hall meeting was convened at the local community center, a drab, fluorescent-lit space that, on that day, became the battleground for the residents' revolt against arbitrary rule. Frustrated homeowners, tired of being bullied by Kerren's endless fines and intrusive inspections, gathered in large numbers, armed with copies of Sam's comprehensive dossier, photographs, video recordings, and eyewitness testimonies documenting every instance of her abuse. One by one, residents recounted their personal experiences of being harassed by Kerren's heavy-handed tactics. The collective anger in the room was palpable, a resounding chorus that declared, "Enough is enough." After hours of impassioned debate, the community voted unanimously to dissolve the current HOA board and remove Kerren from her position as president. The decision was swift and decisive, a clear rejection of the oppressive regime that had long stifled their individual freedoms. Local media quickly picked up the story, heralding it as the fall of the HOA tyrant, while city officials launched an independent investigation into the board's financial practices. It soon emerged that funds had been misappropriated to support Kerren's personal vendettas, and countless fines had been issued solely to intimidate those who dared to live by their own rules. The legal repercussions were swift. Heavy fines were imposed on former board members, and several individuals faced criminal charges for fraud and mismanagement. For Sam, the collapse of the HOA was both a personal vindication and a communal triumph. Sitting on his porch one crisp morning, he sipped his coffee as the sun rose over his reclaimed property, now free from the oppressive dictates of Kerren's regime. Across the neighborhood, the dark shadow of bureaucratic tyranny had lifted, replaced by a vibrant spirit of unity and self-determination. Following the community's decisive vote and the dramatic collapse of the corrupt HOA board, the full force of the law was brought to bear. City inspectors and independent auditors began a comprehensive review of the board's financial records and enforcement practices. Their investigation uncovered a tangled web of misappropriated funds and baseless fines imposed purely to serve Kerren's personal agenda. Money earmarked for community improvements had been diverted, and fines were levied without any factual basis. Armed with this overwhelming evidence, a coalition of affected homeowners, led by Sam, filed a class action lawsuit against the former board. In a series of public hearings, Sam presented his meticulously compiled dossier, video footage of intrusive inspections, photographs of absurd violation notices, and internal communications that exposed the board's systematic abuse of power. The courtroom became the stage for the community's collective voice, and the judge's verdict was swift and unequivocal. Heavy fines were imposed on the board members. Several individuals faced criminal charges for fraud and mismanagement, and the settlement mandated that all misappropriated funds be redirected toward community development projects. Moreover, a new democratically elected board was ordered to be established to govern transparently moving forward. Local headlines soon splashed fall of the HOA tyrants, and the case became a beacon of hope for communities battling arbitrary authority. For Sam and his neighbors, the legal victory was not merely about financial restitution. It was a powerful reclamation of their autonomy and a clear declaration that no one is above the law. With the legal verdict and public humiliation now fully in place, Kerren's personal world crumbled at an alarming pace. Once the unyielding enforcer of the HOA's draconian rules, she was now exposed as a petty, overreaching bully. Forced to resign from her position as president, Kerren found herself isolated as former allies and board members distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with her tarnished legacy. Her stately home, a symbol of the status she once so proudly maintained, was soon put on the market amid swirling rumors of financial ruin, and whispers spread that her longtime partner had finally abandoned her, unable to withstand the relentless pressure and public disgrace. Her attempts to secure even a modest role in property management were met with derision. At local job fairs, potential employers exchanged skeptical glances when her name was mentioned, and the community's scorn was palpable. In one particularly humiliating incident at a city hall meeting, Kerren desperately tried to justify her actions as necessary for community order, but her feeble explanations were met with laughter and pointed remarks from residents. Her personal downfall became a cautionary tale, a living reminder that no one is immune from accountability when power is abused. For Sam, witnessing Kerren's collapse was a quiet, deeply satisfying moment of poetic justice. There was no overt celebration, only the calm satisfaction that comes from knowing that tyranny, no matter how deeply entrenched, will eventually crumble under the united will of a community determined to live free. Kerren's downfall was complete, and her name became synonymous with abuse of power, a stark lesson for anyone who might dare to impose arbitrary control over the lives of others. As autumn turned to winter, the community of Carter Acres slowly began to heal from the tumult of Kerren's reign. The dark days of arbitrary fines, invasive inspections, and outright property violations were now just bitter memories. Sam Carter, whose relentless determination had saved his cherished private pond, sat on his porch wrapped in a warm blanket, watching as the early morning frost glittered like tiny diamonds across his reclaimed landscape. The once troubled pond, now clean and sparkling under the winter sun, had become a symbol of victory and resilience. Neighbors who had long suffered under the oppressive oversight of the HOA gathered at a community celebration in the local park. Laughter filled the crisp air as residents reminisced about the absurdity of it all, from Kerren's endless violation notices to her latest stunt that had prompted Sam to send a $10,000 cleanup bill to the HOA. In a particularly light-hearted moment, one longtime friend, still chuckling from the memories of past misdeeds, produced a giant, homemade HOA violation notice. This tongue-in-cheek document accused Sam of excessive property vigilance and unauthorized federal cleanup operations. With a wry smile, Sam accepted the mock citation, replying, "I guess they really did try." The crowd burst into laughter, the sound echoing as a final, triumphant mic drop on the era of tyrannical oversight. As the celebration carried on into the evening, families mingled and shared plans for a future where community decisions would be made transparently and democratically. The oppressive rules that once loomed over Carter Acres were now replaced by a more equitable, resident-led governance system. Every resident, from the newest homeowner to the oldest, had a voice in shaping the future of their community. Later, as dusk settled and the party wound down, Sam retreated to his porch. The gentle murmur of conversations and the soft glow of streetlights created a serene backdrop. He reflected on the journey, from the shocking discovery of trash in his pond to the bold decision to send a hefty cleanup bill, and ultimately, to the collapse of the HOA's arbitrary authority. His heart swelled with quiet pride, knowing that his stand had not only protected his own legacy, but had also inspired a collective rebellion that ensured every homeowner's rights were respected. In that reflective moment, as the cool night air whispered promises of a better tomorrow, Sam realized that true freedom wasn't about avoiding conflict. It was about standing up for what mattered, even when the odds were stacked against you. The legacy of Kerren's oppressive reign was now just a cautionary tale, a reminder that when a united community rises up, even the most intrusive forces cannot hold them back. With the screen of memory slowly fading to black, the echo of laughter and celebration lingered, a final testament to the enduring power of community and the unyielding spirit of independence. Fade to black.